Who says you need sunshine for color to shine? On cloudy days, flowers show off in a whole new way. Softer light, richer tones, every petal glowing against the gray. No harsh shadows, just pure color doing its thing. So even when the sky looks dull, your garden doesn't have to. Head out to the garden today and check out what's shining. Starting off today's tour, we're going to be in the Bloomables garden, and we'll just make our way throughout the various beds here on the property. I think it is so pretty just to showcase these plants that I think have been extra hard workers and have really taken these gardens well into the fall and have showcased a lot of color. The first plant I wanted to look at here is a Millennium. This particular one is called Autumn Gold. And I love the bright, cheery yellow blooms. They look like small sunflowers. And the thing that's so nice about this plant is it's been blooming now for, I'd say at least a month or so. So great fall color. But if we take a closer look at it, you can just see all of the buds that are still waiting to open up and flower. Now, we've had an exceptionally warm fall here at Garden Crossings in West Michigan. It's a zone 6A here in our garden. So hopefully we don't get a hard frost, because that could stop this plant from continuing to flower. But with all those buds still waiting to open, that's really exciting just to see that this plant has many, many more weeks of color to shine. Another plant that's done really good throughout the season is a coreopsis. This has just been one that has continued to flower through the summer and well into the fall. So this plant right now is about a quarter of it still putting on flower color. And I don't know, it's just, again, another one of those great colors for the fall garden. There's going to be a lot of things that we're going to see in the garden today that are on their second or even third bloom cycle, which I think is pretty impressive. Here we have some penstemon, and these were blooming back in June. This is the Cherry Sparks series. They bloomed in June, they bloomed again, I think it was in August, and now here again in October. They're putting on a pretty impressive show of color. This was one of those nice plants to have, especially for the hummingbirds in the garden, with those long tubular blooms. They're just such a welcoming addition for the pollinators and such. Now, the first flowering plant in the garden was this Veronica here, and this was already in May that the Veronica was blooming. This is the Skyward Purple, I believe, or Skyward Lilac, and in May, full of flower. We have not touched this plant throughout the summer. We haven't touched it in the fall. We just really have not done anything to this plant, and it has continued to put on flowers for, what are we going on, almost 5 months now. Now, again, the first bloom was the most, prolific, but to have this much color in October is very impressive. Continuing along as we walk through the bloomable garden, we have some of the summer-long Agastache. Now there's, I think, 5 different colors out here. These were blooming since May as well, and we didn't touch these plants at all. And they just way outperformed any of my expectations. So as I mentioned, we're a zone 6A. These are a zone 7 plant, and this is the second season that we've had them here in the garden. So they overwintered fine, even though we were slightly colder in our climate than what these plants are slated for. But that goes to show with certain plants, you can kind of test your limits and possibly enjoy the color, in years after, when they're not supposed to be blooming. Now, we never guarantee that. It's always a bonus if it does it, but to have 5 of the varieties, 4 of them, all but the yellow, came back, so that was pretty impressive for us. Here's just another quick look at a coreopsis. This is the Uptick Gold and Bronze, and you can see this one is really putting on just a very, very impressive show of fall color. Another Uptick series. This is the just straight gold variety. And that one too, it's doing fantastic. We'll continue along through the Bloomables garden, and you can see a lot of the plants are tired, and they should be. They've been blooming like since May, some of them in April even. So the fact that they're getting a little tired now is perfectly fine. But these Armeria, low growing, front of the border, I wouldn't call them a ground cover. They're just nice little mounding plants. They were another hardworking perennial that just kept kicking up those flowers throughout the summer. Armeria is a nice drought-tolerant plant. A lot of times you'll find those in rock gardens because of their just little dainty habit, and I love how those blooms just blow in the breeze. Nepeta is known to be a long blooming perennial, especially if you give them a little trim. Well, this here is the Junior Walker Nepeta. No trim was given to it, and it's still blooming here in October. A lot of times with Nepeta, especially maybe you've heard of Walker's Low before, which is kind of the original, let's just say, it splits open and just doesn't have a very nice presence in the landscape. But this Junior Walker, it hasn't split open. It's a nice habit, lots of blooms. So that's one thing when we're looking for new plants too, is we want to make sure they have a good presence in the landscape, that they're not splitting open. Lavender, this has been another one. This is the super blue lavender that just has continued since midsummer to put on flowers. You can see there's still a few of the pollinators enjoying the plant, some of the honeybees and such that are still around. And yeah, a great plant to really extend that season. One thing I wanted to point out to you were these gorgeous butterfly bushes. So these here are part of the chrysalis series, and we actually have, I think, 5 of them now that we've introduced in that chrysalis series. We started off with 2 varieties and they did so well, we added more. So these are compact, only 2 foot tall. They have just been full of color. Now you can see there's a lot of brown spent blooms because it is the end of the season, but they are still putting on blooms and even fresh new blooms. Now we're gonna get cold, so this plant will start to fizzle and fade as our nights get colder. But man, if I had to recommend a series of butterfly bush that's compact with small flowers, like the chrysalis series, this would be the series I'd recommend. Now we also have our Pugster butterfly bush, which have the giant, huge butterfly bush flowers, and they're amazing as well. Nice compact habit. But this chrysalis series, if you like the smaller flower form with lots of flowers, is awesome in my book. Here's another one here, lavender, you can see too. Equally is compact, gorgeous, loaded with blooms, and just really doing fantastic for this late season color. As we were walking through the garden, I saw this penstemon in the background there. That's the onyx and pearls penstemon. So that is a spring blooming perennial. But what's fascinating to me, and I guess I've never honestly noticed this before, is that it has fantastic fall foliage. Look at that, the beautiful red stems, the reddish orange leaves. That plant not only has the gorgeous early summer blooms, but it's got fantastic fall foliage as well. Now, there are some perennials that do have great fall foliage. I just had never noticed that before, so that's something I want to point out. Onyx and Pearls is a penstemon variety that we haven't carried in a few years, but we are looking to bring that back again for the 2026 season. As we continue to walk through the gardens, this was a perfect place to stop and show you just how beautiful these annuals are still doing. I know it seems crazy because, you know, we're West Michigan. By now we've had our first hard frost, but we haven't this year. So the fact that it's this late in the season and there's still this much color in the landscaping is absolutely amazing and truly very breathtaking. We have been so pleased with how the annuals have done this year. And honestly, thinking about next year and how we might change things, I really can't think of anything that we need to change. I definitely am going to do sun patience again. I'm loving the yellow begonias, the white begonias, and the waterfall garden did exceptional. So I think we really did a good job. And to be honest, I would say we nailed it with the selections that we chose for the annuals in the garden this year. So we had seen the lavender in the bloomables garden. I think it was the super blue just a little bit ago. And here we have the sweet romance lavender. And you can see the sweet romance lavender from Proven Winners is also doing just as well this late in the season, putting up a lot of blooms. Behind it, we've got the butterfly bush. That's the blue chip junior butterfly bush. And you can see how that's just a little bit bigger than what that chrysalis series is. Again, both of the series are excellent bloomers. These are just a little bit bigger in habit than what the chrysalis series are. So depending on the space you have in your garden, may depend on the size of the butterfly bush you're looking to add in. So this is a fun little color spot in the garden. The lantana are just so gorgeous, and I love how we paired them there with the sweet romance lavender, just another space in the garden where we've added that lavender in. And the purple and yellow have such a stunning combination. So we had seen just a minute ago the onyx and pearls penstemon coloring up really nicely for fall. Here we also have the Midnight Masquerade. So this is a proven winter variety, and it too is really putting on some pretty fantastic fall color with the shades of that burgundy, that rich red, a little bit of orange going on. I didn't realize, again, that that was going to do nice with adding foliage interest this late in the season. You might start noticing your roses starting to put on some rose hips. That's the little orange berries or balls that you're seeing on the rose plant. Typically will come through once we start doing garden cleanup and trim all those off. But even after the flowers have gone away, those rose hips do add some interesting look to the rose bushes. Garden mums are also a great plant to add in the garden for that late season color. They're just kind of one of those traditional, I think, garden plants that add in all different kind of coloration. We're going to get to the other side of the garden too and show you some more varieties. These here are starting to split open. One way, a little tip here, one way to prevent that from happening is somewhere around midsummer or so, you go ahead and you trim your mums in half, and then that will help them so they don't get so spindly and crack open. It'll help bulk them up a little bit, keep them just a little bit shorter, and usually that will help prevent that from happening if that's something that tends to happen in your garden. Ornamental grasses there, we've got the prairie winds, desert plain grass, and that's putting on some nice fall color. I love how it blows in the breeze. It adds that whole blow in the breeze element to the garden. We have a few coneflowers still blooming. These are actually a new variety. This is a proven winter variety called color-coded Knockem Red. So when I look at the Knockem Red, I'm seeing magenta color, I'm seeing a little red. So when I look at these, it's not like that's a red coneflower. There's definitely shades of pink in there, but just a new variety that we're trialing. This is coming out in 2026, and I wanted to stop and show you these along the tour just to show you how they're doing. They've got nice dark stems, which I think is kind of a unique or different look. Some coneflowers do have that, not all of them, but when you can add in those gorgeous blooms with a dark stem, that's a good pairing of color. People are always stopping to ask when we're doing these videos, what's that variegated shrub in the garden? That indeed is not a variegated shrub. Those are sun patiens. That is the tropical rose variety of sun patiens. They're an annual here in Michigan. So once we do get that frost I keep talking about, they're going to turn black and they will be dead for the season. Russian sage, this has been going strong. A nice late summer into fall bloomer, and it's stayed like that for weeks and weeks and almost probably months and months at this point, just with that nice silvery blue gray flowers going on. Certain things definitely are tired, more grass. This is why grass is important in the late season garden, because it adds that element that some other plants don't have. A couple shrubs I want to point out too. I know we're kind of heading all over the board with talking about the perennials and the annuals and such, but this is the viburnum brandywine, and I love the berries that viburnum brandywine puts on. You can also see it starting to take on a little bit of its fall color, so it gets these gorgeous bright red leaves. I just pulled this one off, but they're glossy, they're bright red, and this whole plant is going to turn that color in the fall. I would say as far as viburnum go, brandywine is my #1 favorite due to the huge berry clusters and the gorgeous glossy fall foliage it puts on. You know, for us, we're gonna come through probably the next few weeks or so and trim back the perennials that need to be trimmed, pull out the annuals. Sometimes we like to pull the annuals out before they get hit by the frost, because then they get all mushy and gross. So sometimes the garden cleanup's a little easier when the plants are still pretty firm and not all grossed out because of the frost and what it does to them. So we'll see, that's in the plans. look at this. This is the Boom Chocolata geranium. Gorgeous foliage, which it has, but look at that. Look at those red stems. Is that not very pretty? Now this plant is starting to crack open a little bit from the wind, but that is a feature that, again, I haven't noticed. And that's why you got to get out in the garden, and you got to do it in different seasons. You got to see it in different sunlight, because the different lighting just really gives your garden a whole different vibe and a whole different feel. Anemone, these are just getting past their prime, but this was a gorgeous mass of pink. Gorgeous, gorgeous fall flowers. Definitely a plant that likes to spread. You can see that here in the landscape, but this was just a sea of beautiful pink blooms. One plant I wanted to point out to you that has 4 seasons of interest is the Heptacodium, Temple of Bloom. And I wanted to show you this right now because these bracts are so gorgeous right now. This is not even the flower. So the flower is these white blooms, and you can see the pollinators love the flowers of the Temple of Bloom. But once those flowers fade and fizzle, this is what's left behind, is these gorgeous rosy pink bracts. And that's something that you can see in the garden from a distance. And if you didn't know better, you would think that's actually what the flowers look like on this plant. Now, I do need to get out and do a video on this one, trimming it up. So this has been in the garden now, I think this is year 3 or 4. And what I'm trying to do is train this into tree form. So we'll come out and do another video on getting rid of some of these lower branches here to make it more of a tree form. Because the reason why I want to make this tree form is because the bark is super interesting on this plant. So once all the leaves and such fall off in the winter, what you're going to see, and I think we can show it right here, is how this bark kind of peels like that. So that's kind of that winter interest that this plant brings to the plant, is the unique peeling bark. So I know this is a plant that a lot of people have had a lot of interest in, and they always are asking me, I buy it and it's a shrub, how do you get it into tree form? That's something we'll be showing you in upcoming videos, so kind of stay tuned for that as well. So a couple last plants we're going to show on today's tour actually are the hardy hibiscus. The hardy hibiscus usually bloom in August here in West Michigan. And usually once they're done blooming, the plants kind of start to turn brown and kind of just go fizzle and fade away. But what I found really interesting this year is a lot of our hardy hibiscus, because we've had such a warm fall, are starting to rebloom again. This one here is All Eyes on Me, and you can see towards the bottom, that's all newer growth, and that newer growth is putting on blooms. So I love the fact that this year, for whatever reason, obviously we know weather plays a big part in what our gardens do, the hardy hibiscus, also known as rose mallow, are putting on another bloom. We're going to head down here and show you one more. I think, well, we'll find it as we get down here. As we're walking, you can see the bubblegum petunias, how well they've done. I think there was actually a hydrangea planted in the middle of this mess, and see if it's even in there. It's probably dead by now, but there was a hydrangea planted in the middle of here, and these bubblegum petunia just absolutely overtook the plant. All right, the last one here is another hardy hibiscus, and look at all of these gorgeous red blooms going on. I think this one here is either Valentine. I think this is Valentine is the variety of this one here. And so many beautiful deep red blooms for late in the season. It's just exciting that we actually still have content to show you out in the gardens. As I've mentioned in the earlier introductions, is usually by this time of year, Michigan has had a good hard frost and has taken most of the plants out with it. So the fact that we've had this really warm fall has been a blessing in a way, because we've just been able to enjoy these plants that much longer. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to leave them below. And if you're new to our channel, I welcome you to subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.